Have you ever stopped mid-scroll, looked at the absolute circus that is the modern world and thought, who is actually in charge of all this? It's a fair question. Billionaire buys farmland to start his own country. Headline: the big three control basically every company you know. We feel like supporting characters in a massive board game. Someone else wrote the rules, owns the board, owns the pieces, owns the dice. Makes you want to move to a remote cabin, communicate only by carrier pigeon, except a tech CEO probably owns that pigeon too. Take a deep breath. Ownership isn't simple, it's a multi-layered cake of influence, a Russian doll of power structures, physical land we stand on, digital money in our bank accounts, corporations selling toothpaste to rocket ships, the national debt, politicians who often represent donors' interests. These are real mechanisms shaping our lives. Control is a web, not a pyramid. Instead, there are multiple overlapping spheres of influence, all connected in ways that are sometimes obvious and sometimes deeply, deeply weird, from 19th century railroad tycoons to 21st century asset managers. A secret meeting on a private island in 1910 shaped today's money. A handful of investment firms can vote on your behalf in shareholder meetings that decide companies you hold in retirement. We'll try to figure out who we owe all that money to. Spoiler, you're on the list. Let's start with the basics, the literal ground floor of American power: land. Back in the day, owning land was the power move. It was the 19th century equivalent of having a verified account on social media, but with more dirt and fewer influencers. Take the Pacific Railway Act of 1862, for instance. Congress didn't just approve a railroad, they handed over a staggering 174 million acres of public land to railroad companies. This wasn't just a little strip for the tracks, it was vast swaths of territory, effectively giving corporations total control over the development of the American West. The insiders at Union Pacific set up a sham construction company called Credit Mobilier. They then proceeded to give discounted shares to key congressmen to ensure those politicians kept the government money flowing their way. When this whole scheme blew up in 1872, it was a national scandal that revealed a fundamental truth. But fast forward to today, 2025, and the pattern is surprisingly familiar. A small group of mega landlords still holds an outsized amount of power. Private owners control about 60% of all U.S. land, which is roughly 1.3 billion acres. We're talking about families you've probably never heard of, like the Emersons, who own over 2.4 million acres. That's more land than the entire state of Delaware. Tech billionaires have also gotten in on the action, with figures like Bill Gates quietly becoming one of the largest owners of American farmland. This matters because owning that much land isn't just about having a big backyard, it's about controlling resources, influencing local economies, and affecting tax revenues. When a massive landowner decides to develop or not develop, or seeks tax-exempt status for their holdings, it has a ripple effect on the entire community. Schools, public services, and local tax burdens can all be swayed by the decisions of a single, distant owner. So, while the methods may have changed from railroads to complex LLCs, the fundamental power that comes from owning a massive piece of America remains as potent as ever. Understanding the game is the first step to figuring out how to play it. If land was the original source of power, then the ability to create and control money is its supercharged high-tech evolution. The origin story of America's modern money system sounds like a spy thriller, except it's all true. Picture this. November 1910, a secret meeting on Jekyll Island. A group of the nation's most powerful bankers met in secret. They represented giants like J.P. Morgan, National City Bank. They were supposedly on a duck hunting trip. Their real mission: draft the blueprint for the Federal Reserve. Their goal: create a system to control the nation's money supply. That led to the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. The Fed was created, and it's not directly controlled by the government, and it was given a superpower: fractional reserve banking. Here's how it used to work. You deposit $100, the bank kept 10 in its vault, could lend out 90. Repeat, and $100 turns into nearly $1,000 of credit. Then in March 2020, something wilder happened. The Fed lowered the reserve requirement to 0%. Today, the Federal Reserve holds over $6 trillion on its balance sheet and wields immense power over the economy. The chairman of the Fed is one of the most powerful people on the planet, and the president cannot fire them. When a handful of institutions decide who creates dollars and how many, some argue this is one of the ultimate ways to own a country. Alright, so banks control the money, but what about the companies that make up the economy? Who owns the stock market? You've likely heard a theory about the holy trinity of asset managers: BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street. The narrative goes they secretly own everything from Apple to your local utility company. They manage over $23 trillion and are the largest shareholders in an overwhelming majority of S&P 500 companies. Now here's where it gets complicated. The claim that they own the world is both completely wrong and sort of right. It's wrong because the trillions they manage aren't their money. It's our money. It belongs to millions of everyday investors like you and me, 401ks, pension funds, ETFs like Vanguard's VDSAX. These firms are essentially giant, powerful custodians, so technically we are the owners. Well, not quite. They wield the power that comes with shares. This power is called proxy voting. When you own a share, you get to vote on who sits on the board. But, do you have the time to read hundreds of pages and vote? Of course not. You have cats to watch on the internet, so you implicitly give a proxy to the fund manager. This is their superpower. By controlling voting rights for trillions, the big three are the most influential voices in nearly every major boardroom. They can't directly fire a CEO, but they can vote for board members who will. They can push for corporate policies on environmental standards and executive pay. Charlie Munger once said of BlackRock's CEO, "I'm not sure I want him to be my emperor." When just three firms hold the largest voting blocks in corporate America, it raises a profound question. Who is really running the show? So we've got land barons, money printers, and corporate kingmakers. But there's another massive lever of control we need to talk about: debt. Specifically, the U.S. national debt. It's a number thrown around to scare people. As of late 2024, gross federal debt, over $36 trillion. That's more than our entire GDP, like a credit card bill bigger than your annual salary. So, who is our sugar daddy? Who did we borrow this money from? Rumor: China owns us. Claim: China could dump treasuries and trigger an apocalypse. Foreign countries own about $8.5 trillion of U.S. debt. Japan and China together own under $2 trillion. Selling off that much would be economic suicide for them. Dumping treasuries would crash their value and spike global interest rates. If not foreign countries, then who? The biggest holder, the Federal Reserve, over $6 trillion. The rest is held by the public: American investors, state and local governments, pension funds, mutual funds, insurance companies. If you own a U.S. savings bond or bond fund, congratulations, you are a part owner of America's debt. This creates a bizarre feedback loop. Government issues treasury bonds to finance spending. The Fed can buy those bonds, effectively printing money. Consequence: debt becomes riskier, investors demand higher rates. Higher rates mean more government interest payments, which leads to more debt. It's an unsustainable path, even the Fed chair admits. The control is subtle. Constant borrowing and rate management gives power to debt holders, domestic and foreign. So, if the systems of land, money, and debt are so entrenched, can't we just vote for new people to fix it all? What a beautiful, simple idea. Unfortunately, the political system itself has become another arena where wealth exerts a powerful and often decisive influence. It turns out that running for office is incredibly expensive, and the money to fund these campaigns has to come from somewhere. A mere 100 billionaire families spent a record-breaking $2.6 billion on federal races, and it gets even murkier with the rise of dark money, funds spent by non-profits and shell companies that are not required to disclose their donors. In 2024, an estimated $1.9 billion in dark money flooded into elections, making it nearly impossible for the public to know who is trying to influence their vote. It creates a shadow government of influence, operating just outside the public's view, completing the circle of control. By now, your head is probably spinning. Powerful landowners, money-creating banks, proxy voting asset managers, a nation drowning in debt, a political system fueled by billionaire donors. It's easy to look at each as separate problems, but the real power is how they connect and reinforce one another. Not 5 separate games of chess, one giant, three-dimensional game where every piece is linked. Control lives in the intersections. This interconnectedness makes the structure resilient and hard to change. Let's trace some connections. A mega landowner like Bill Gates might use his wealth managed by firms like BlackRock to buy up farmland. BlackRock, Vanguard, other asset managers are the largest shareholders in banks receiving freshly created money from the Federal Reserve. Those banks lend money to corporations. Those corporations are also controlled by asset managers. Landowners, bank executives, hedge fund managers use fortunes to donate to political campaigns. Politicians then pass laws favorable to their interests. The Fed lowering interest rates doesn't happen in a vacuum. It makes it cheaper for massive corporations to borrow money, potentially boosting their stock price. This benefits large asset managers who hold those stocks and the wealthy individuals with concentrated portfolios. Those individuals then lobby politicians to keep agricultural subsidies that benefit their land holdings. The result is a self-perpetuating feedback loop. Fixing one issue at a time is like stopping a flood with a single sandbag. Regulate campaign finance, money reroutes through lobbying or dark money groups. Break up the big banks. Their influence in the stock market and their connections to the Fed remain. This isn't to say change is impossible, but it shows why it's so hard. The system is designed to be a fortress with multiple mutually reinforcing walls. Understanding these connections is crucial. The issue is a complex architecture of control. Okay, the system is a complex self-reinforcing web of power controlled by a handful of interconnected groups. That's a lot. It's enough to make you feel completely powerless, like a tiny ant in a world of giant uncaring shoes. So, what is a regular person supposed to do? You might not be able to dismantle the Federal Reserve or rewrite campaign finance law before breakfast, but you can control the one thing you truly own: your economic energy. Economic energy is the value you create with your time and skills, which you convert into money. This dollar isn't just paper, it represents a portion of my life. I traded my time and effort for it. The problem? This energy is leaky. Someone else has a button, the money printer, that slowly zaps value out of this dollar. I don't see it vanish, but I feel it at the grocery store when the dollar buys less than last year. It's a slow, silent tax on your time. The wealthy solved this long ago. They don't hoard cash. They convert leaky money into durable containers, assets that hold or grow value over time. An economic lifeboat. These are stores of value, stocks in successful companies, real estate in desirable locations, precious metals like gold, fine art. These assets carry a premium. People pay more than their simple utility. Why pay $100 million for a painting? It's not better as wall decor. It's an efficient container for economic energy. Rich people pay the premium because the painting leaks less than cash. Move your energy out of depreciating cash into appreciating or stable assets. Understanding this is the first and most important step to protect the value of your hard work. Maybe the most radical act is taking control of your economic destiny. So after this whirlwind tour, land, money, corporations, debt, politics, we come back to our original terrifying question: who really owns America? Is there a single group, a council of elders in a secret mountain fortress pulling all the strings? The honest answer is no, and yes, it's complicated. There isn't one solitary entity with total control. If there were, things would probably be a lot more efficient. Power is fractured, distributed across overlapping and competing groups. Big landowners control the physical realm. Central bankers and financial institutions control credit and money. Giant asset managers control corporate voting power. Wealthy political donors influence the laws. Each group holds a piece of the puzzle, none holds all of it. Sometimes their interests align, creating powerful feedback loops. Other times, they compete. Tech billionaires want different regulations. Wall Street banks want different rules. The Fed sets interest rate policy. It's less a monarchy, more a messy, high-stakes oligarchy. This complexity is both a feature and a bug. It prevents any one emperor, which is good, but it creates a dense, opaque system, which is bad. One owner versus many systems. Control is decentralized among a very small exclusive club. The real question becomes what you personally value about ownership and freedom. Political freedom, social freedom, preserving the value of your time and effort. For many, the most tangible form of control is economic. The ability to ensure today's energy still has value tomorrow. Finding a superior store of value comes into play. Real estate, stocks, Bitcoin. Ultimately, we may not control national levers, but we can strive to own our future. Maybe the most radical act is taking control of your economic destiny. What will you choose to store your energy in? Understanding the game is the first step to figuring out how to play it. Not to scare you into a bunker, but to arm you with clarity. We'll poke each sphere with a stick and see what squirms, from 19th century railroad tycoons to 21st century asset managers. A secret meeting on a private island in 1910 shaped today's money. A handful of investment firms can vote on your behalf. We'll try to figure out who we owe all that money to. Spoiler, you're on the list. Move your energy out of depreciating cash into appreciating or stable assets. Understanding this is the first and most important step to protect the value of your hard work. The most radical act might just be taking control of your own economic destiny. You may not control the national levers of power, but you can control your economic energy. What will you choose to store your energy in? The choice is yours.